Hello, all, and welcome to this. I have decided to put together my fantasy card for WrestleMania 41 in Vegas, April 19th and April 20th in 2025. Now, I am coming at this from a casual fan point of view. I do not watch Raw and SmackDown every week. I don't watch every single pay-per-view or PLE. I do try to keep up with highlights, on YouTube here and there, and I do check the results of every PLE, and I do know who the current champions are and all that, but I'm coming at this from a casual fan point of view. Now, I used to be a hardcore fan. If there's anybody left over from, the old days of this channel, none of the videos are public anymore, but if anybody's left over from the old days of this channel, you would know that I used to do wrestling vlogs like constantly throughout the aughts, like 2007, 2008, 2009, and here and there, even in the 2010s, I would do it as well. And so I used to be a hardcore fan. And I'll talk a little bit about my background as a wrestling fan. And don't worry, for all of you who just want to see the card and they don't want to spend, I tend to ramble when I make videos, so that it wouldn't surprise me if this video is like an hour or 2 hours long. If you just want to see the card and you don't want to stick around for the ramble, I will post, all the I'll do a pinned comment where you can skip through to each of the matches and see what match one is, match two, match three, etc., etc. So don't worry. If you want to just see the card and nothing else, you can do that. I'll put a pinned comment in the comment section with the timelines. But my background as a wrestling fan was I came from a really wrestling heavy elementary school in terms of our elementary school actually had a wrestling team. Usually that doesn't start until high school in Canada and Ontario, but we had one of our teachers was a really, really accomplished amateur wrestler in Canada who wanted and fought desperately to have a wrestling team, for our elementary school. So a lot of people got into wrestling because of that, even though it's, amateur versus pro. But there was just a lot of wrestling fans in general. Now I'm always late to the party in my life. That's just kind of the theme of my life is I'm always a little bit late to the party and late, taking a next step in life, etc. Which hopefully means I'm just going to live really long, knock on wood. Hope that happens. But I didn't get into wrestling right away. Like, the kids that I went to school with, they were wrestling fans at like 7, 8, 9 years old. I didn't really start getting into it until around 11 or 12. And there were a few reasons for that. Number one, like I said, I'm always kind of late to the party. That's kind of a theme of my life. But number two is, you know, my brother and I were pretty rowdy kids, me especially, because I have ADD and, ADHD or whatever as a kid, so I was always really rowdy, and I had a pretty strict mom growing up, and she did not think wrestling was a great idea for our household, and we weren't able to convince her otherwise until, like I said, I was about maybe 12-ish. I'll tell you exactly when I started getting into wrestling was I'm from Ontario, and WrestleMania 18 was in Toronto, Canada. Now, I did not go to WrestleMania 18, um, but the build up to WrestleMania 18 is when I really started getting into it on a weekly basis. Partly due to the first couple things I talked about, but also just the fact that there was so much hype about it being in Toronto. I didn't live in Toronto at the time. I do live in Toronto now. I was from Kitchener-Waterloo, Ontario at the time, but this hype was still even there. Just the fact that WrestleMania was going to be in Toronto, and that was obviously the year that Rock and Hulk Hogan faced off at WrestleMania. But that's when I really got into it, was the build up to that, and it was when Triple H was turning face. He just returned, he won the Royal Rumble, and he was turning face, and he was going to face Chris Jericho for the belt. So the lead up to WrestleMania 18 is when I started really, really getting into it on a weekly basis. Raw and SmackDown anyways. I didn't start watching pay-per-views consistently until probably after WrestleMania 21. I saw pay-per-views here and there before then. I would say after WrestleMania 21 is when I really started getting into, watching as many pay-per-views as I could. Because at that point, I was a bit older. I was able to convince my parents to loan me the money to get them, and or I started getting my own jobs and just buying them myself. But my first WrestleMania was WrestleMania 20, and we're going to get into that in a little bit of a second here. But that ultimately, I was a wrestling fan, hardcore purist wrestling fan from, I would say, WrestleMania 18 up until WrestleMania 31. And then I kind of didn't watch it anymore. I didn't even watch WrestleMania 32 through 38. I watched parts of WrestleMania 38. I watched a lot of WrestleMania 39. I watched like the whole entire second night of WrestleMania 39. But I watched WrestleMania 40 this past year in total. Like I watched it fully from the beginning of night one to the end of night two. I even watched SummerSlam in full this year, which is the first SummerSlam I've watched in over a decade. I've never even watched parts of SummerSlam until this year. I thought SummerSlam was just an okay show, by the way. But I have been keeping up. I know the roster. But I'm coming at this from a casual fan because I can't call myself a hardcore fan anymore because I'm just simply not in the know as much as other fans are. And I know a lot of, wrestling fans online, they can be very purist and they can be very, it's like a boys club. And if you're not in line with, the views of the hardcore fans, you can kind of get bullied a bit in the wrestling fan community. But I want to make it clear that I'm coming at this from a casual fan's point of view. I used to be a hardcore fan between WrestleManias 18 and 31. I no longer am, but I have been getting back into it slowly. I watched WrestleMania 40 in entirety. I watched, most of WrestleMania 39 the year before. I watched SummerSlam this year, and like I said, I've been keeping up with it. So that being said, I want to get into what my vision for WrestleMania 41 is. But before even that, I want to talk about some patterns that I noticed through my time as a wrestling fan. So we're going to go to the next slide here. And right here you see that at WrestleMania 20 to 21, and then WrestleMania 30 to 31, and then WrestleMania 40 to, which is the question mark signifies WrestleMania 41. Now there's some commonality and there's some themes here that I want to talk about. If you look to the top left corner, that's obviously WrestleMania 20, the ending of WrestleMania 20 that saw the wrestler that shall not be named. Everybody who's a wrestling fan knows who that is. They knows what happened. Let's just move on. The wrestler that shall not be named with Eddie Guerrero as they hold the World Heavyweight and WWE titles up in the air. This was my first ever WrestleMania that I watched live. I don't mean in the arena, but I mean I watched it live as it was happening on pay-per-view. I watched it with some friends of mine in a movie theater, and it was a really great time. It was a pretty decent WrestleMania to have my first WrestleMania experience with. And what an ending. One of the greatest WrestleMania endings of all time. Almost said the name that shall not be mentioned, with Eddie Guerrero holding the two world titles. Now, the very next year at WrestleMania, WrestleMania 20, the theme of that ending was the celebration of their careers, right? You have Eddie Guerrero and his friend who have both been wrestlers for decades, all over across the world. Now we're finally celebrating their careers by letting them have the two world titles and having them end off WrestleMania together, raising their hands together under the confetti. It's a celebration of their career. However, those guys, apologize for the interruption right there. There's some construction going on outside of my unit in my building. So there's some just drilling for a second there. But the important thing is that the ending of WrestleMania 20 was about celebrating those two men, and that moment would go on to what should have been one of the greatest WrestleMania moments of all time is almost kind of forgotten due to what happened with the wrestler that shall not be named. But the fact that both of those men were both passed away within 4 years, three and a half to 4 years after that photo or after that night was taken. That photo was taken that night, of course. But the fact that neither of them, are around today, that moment, based on what's happened, we know what that moment is, but it's not as talked about as much as it should be. But the point is, WrestleMania 20 was about celebrating their careers, but neither of them became main eventers. Neither of them were constant main eventers through the WrestleMania 20s. WrestleMania 20 was about celebrating them, But right away at the next WrestleMania, we had John Cena and Batista be handed the reins. They won the 2 world titles at WrestleMania 21, and they were the guys. They were the guys right from WrestleMania 21 through to WrestleMania 30. Batista, had some years here and there where he wasn't around due to injury or he left the company, etc. But they were the guys. Cena especially. He was the guy. He wasn't in every single main event from the WrestleMania through the WrestleMania 20s, but he did main event WrestleMania 22. He main evented WrestleMania 23. He was in title matches at 24, 25, and 26. He main evented 27. He main evented 28, and he main evented 29. They were clearly the guys through the WrestleMania 20s. They were neither of them, however, were the guys through the WrestleMania 30s. Were they involved in the 30s? Yes. Were they in main events here and there? Yes. Batista did main event WrestleMania 30, but neither of them were the guys anymore. WrestleMania 30 was about celebrating the career of Bryan Danielson, also known as Daniel Bryan. He finally got to win the big one in the main event of WrestleMania. It wasn't his first world title win, but it was his first, they finally let him have his moment. And that's what WrestleMania 30 was. It was the celebration of Daniel Bryan, Bryan Danielson, the Yes Movement, and it was another night of celebration of letting this babyface pure pro wrestler who's wrestled around the world have his moment. However, he would not be the constant main event. He would not be, the guy to carry WrestleMania through the 30s. The guys to do that were Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins, who were handed the reins, no pun intended, at WrestleMania 31 the next year, the way that Cena and Batista were for the 20s. Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins were handed the reins at WrestleMania 31. Roman got to main event at WrestleMania against Brock Lesnar, the guy who beat the streak the year before WrestleMania 30. And Roman was positioned, as a main event challenger from the Royal Rumble through the WrestleMania season. And then on the night of, they had Seth Rollins cash in Money in the Bank to win the world title in the main event. Because they weren't quite ready to give it to Roman yet, and they couldn't have Brock Lesnar just retain the title. So they knew they needed to pass it on to the future. So they gave it to Seth Rollins, and Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins, Roman especially, just like Cena especially, were the guys to carry WrestleMania through the 30s. Now, both of those guys are still around, both of those guys are still involved, and much like Cena and Batista, I think in the 40s, and Roman did main event WrestleMania 40 the way Batista main evented WrestleMania 30. I think Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins have more to give, and I think that they should be around to offer what they have to give through the 40s. And should they main event here and there? Yes. But I don't think either of them should be the guys anymore. I think we need a new the guy to carry the WWE through the WrestleMania 40s. Now, the bottom photo, we all know that at WrestleMania 40, the story became complete. Cody Rhodes finally finished his story. He won the big one. He won the WWE Championship. He did it for, not only his career, his long career wrestling in the WWE, outside the WWE, around the world, starting his own wrestling promotion, returning to the WWE, being the one to finally eclipse Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns had the most legendary title run we've seen since Hulk Hogan. And Cody did it. Not only did he beat the perfect champion, not only did he celebrate his entire career, but he did it for his family. We all know what the story was. It was perfect. In my opinion, Cody Rhodes, the story, was a better moment than Eddie Guerrero and the one who shall not be named. It was a better moment than Daniel Bryan / Bryan Danielson at WrestleMania 30. Cody Rhodes, the story, was the best moment of the three. But if you follow the themes, that would mean this year we see who the next the guy or guys to carry WrestleMania from the 40s all the way through until WrestleMania 50, right? Because it wasn't Eddie Guerrero and the one who shall not be named, it was John Cena and Batista. It wasn't Daniel Bryan, Bryan Danielson, it was Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins. I don't think Cody Rhodes is going to carry the WWE from here until WrestleMania 50. I think he'll be there. I think he'll be involved. I think he'll do more than what Daniel Bryan, Bryan Danielson did in the 30s. Eddie Guerrero and his friend both passed away, so They couldn't necessarily do everything they could through the WrestleMania 20s, but they weren't being positioned as main eventers anyways. I think Cody will be more successful in the 40s than all those guys, but I don't think he's John Cena Batista. I don't think he's Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins. I think Roman Reigns, the next Roman Reigns, the next Seth Rollins, the next John Cena, the next Batista hasn't been found yet. And it should be at WrestleMania 41 that they're given that reigns. The problem is all of the guys and girls, because I think, through the women's revolution, and women have main evented WrestleMania by this point, and, women have main evented single night WrestleManias, they've main evented, 2-night WrestleManias on one of the nights. They've had the women's revolution. There's 2 women world titles that are considered as prestigious as the men's world titles nowadays. I think the next face of WWE could be a woman. In fact, I do think it will be a woman, and we'll get to that through my predictions of, or my fantasy card for WrestleMania 41. But the point is, all the men that could be the next Cena Batista, or the next Roman / Seth, or the next Cena / Roman, I don't think they're ready yet. And the woman who I think will ultimately be the next Roman or the next Cena, I don't think she's ready yet either. So we're going to break kind of the theme of what WrestleMania 41 should have been when you look at the history of all these WrestleManias. We're breaking the theme a little bit, but we're not breaking it entirely, which brings me to my next slide and what I ultimately think the themes of WrestleMania 41 should be. And it's simple: past, present, and future. Is WrestleMania 41 going to symbolically be exactly like WrestleMania 31 and 21? No. But I think we can take a step towards that direction. I think we can take a step towards who will be the guy in the company while we represent the future of the company at this WrestleMania. We also need to celebrate the present. And we also need the past to be involved to help pass the torch to the present and also help kickstart the future. If you look at all my matches throughout this fantasy card, you're going to see that past, present, and future are represented throughout the nights. And in some cases, the past, present, and future are represented in, single matches where you see, a past, present, and future represented in one full match. There's a couple matches like that, but through the entire card, it's past, present, and future. And I honestly think the WWE should market WrestleMania 41 to be this. I think they should call WrestleMania 41 nickname past, present, future. They're going to call it WrestleMania Vegas or whatever, but they should refer to it as much as possible as WrestleMania past, present, and future. And that is going to be my theme through this card. All right, so before we get into it, I just want to say that for my WrestleMania, both night 1 and night 2 at WrestleMania Vegas will have 8 matches. Now, if you look at the 2-night formula of WrestleMania throughout the years that they've been doing it, they usually bounce between 7 to 9 matches per night, usually at 7 or 8. At WrestleMania 40, you had 7 night 1 and 8 night 2, or it was vice versa. I can't remember. I'm not going to go bother looking now, but it was 8 and 7 or 7 and 8. I think it was 8 first night. It doesn't matter. But the point is they had 15 matches. One night was 7, one night was 8. I think you can do 8 matches per night for 16 matches total, and that's what I'm doing. Now, before I get into the card, and I know people are probably like, just hurry up, just get to the card, but we are still several months away from WrestleMania, right? We're still in early September here, so we haven't even gotten to Survivor Series yet, let alone the Royal Rumble. There's still so much that can happen. And I think I should clarify that I am not going to have all the current champions be champions come WrestleMania. So I want to quickly go through who my champions are heading into WrestleMania before I can reveal the card. So I'll just go through who my list of champions are and how I would get them the title if they're not already the current champions. So we'll start with the women's tag team champions. Right now, the current champions are Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill. I don't want either of them to be tag team champions heading into WrestleMania because I have different plans for them, and no, my plan is not for them to be facing each other. I think it's too soon for Jade versus Bianca. We'll get into WrestleMania 42. I think, that it could be for WrestleMania 42, but not for WrestleMania 41. It's too soon. But I don't want them to be tag team champions either. I want them to drop it to the former champions, the Unholy Union, Alba Fire and Isla Dawn. I think the former champions can regain the titles probably sometime before the new year or maybe sometime after the new year. And they can win it in like a triple threat tag team match or a fatal four-way tag team match. Something that isn't going to see Bianca and Jade come across weak and losing, but also isn't going to cause them to, turn on one another and start a feud. Because I don't want either of those things happening, but I do want the women's tag team champions to be Alba Fire and Isla Dawn. The World Tag Team Champions, I actually have the Creed brothers. Um, Julius Creed and um, Julius Creed and Brutus Creed, the American-made, the Creed brothers. I have them winning the World Tag Team titles. I'm not overly familiar with these guys because I don't watch Raw on a week-to-week basis, but I do know that they're working with Chad Gable. So I did have to kind of look at my notes to get their first names. I couldn't remember them specifically. I just know them kind of as the Creed brothers, but I do think these guys, with the work they're doing, sorry about that, is the construction work. They keep drilling, and I don't understand why they're constantly drilling into my wall throughout this. I think they should be done at this part of the building by now, but they're trying to work, I'm trying to work, it is what it is. But I have the Creed brothers winning my World Tag Team titles. I do think with the work they're doing with Chad Gable, I do think they're being built up enough that they could be tag team champions by WrestleMania. Now for the WWE Tag Team Champions, right now the current holders are three of the members of the New Bloodline. I don't think the Bloodline should be Tag Team Champions heading into WrestleMania, and I'll get into the Bloodline in a minute here. But I want to see those tag team titles go back to A-Town Down Under, Grayson Waller, and Austin Theory. All three of the tag team titles I have going to new champions heading into WrestleMania. For the women's tag, the Unholy Union. For the World Tag Team titles, the Creed Brothers. And for the WWE Tag Team titles, A-Town Down Under. For the US and Intercontinental titles, I have Braun Breaker and LA Knight holding both respectively up until WrestleMania. I'm totally fine with that. For the women's world title, I do have Rhea Ripley getting the title back from Liv Morgan and holding it to WrestleMania. She probably wins it at Bad Blood, inside Hell in a Cell, or some kind of match at Survivor Series. So Rhea Ripley gets her title back and will hold it to WrestleMania. For the women's WWE title, I have Nia Jax holding on to the title until WrestleMania. I'm totally fine with that. And Tiffany Stratton not cashing in her Money in the Bank briefcase up until that point. Now, for my World and WWE titles, I have both of them changing hands, and we'll start with the World title. Right now, the champion is Gunther, and I'll get into why I don't want Gunther or Cody heading into WrestleMania as champions. You'll see through my match card where I have them placed. For Gunther, what I would do is I would have him lose the world title to CM Punk at Survivor Series. I would have CM Punk go over Drew McIntyre inside Hell in a Cell at Bad Blood. That match hasn't been announced yet, but everybody's saying it's going to be CM Punk, Drew McIntyre, Hell in a Cell at Bad Blood. You have Punk win that, and then you have Punk go over Gunther at Survivor Series, which leads to the Royal Rumble, where Punk will defend the world title against a returning John Cena. John Cena is, of course, going through his 2025 farewell tour that's going to start at the Royal Rumble. Now, I would have Cena not enter the Royal Rumble, but I would have Cena challenge CM Punk for the world title at Royal Rumble, and it can be, John Cena and CM Punk's last match together as well, reigniting that feud for one night only for the World Heavyweight title. This is where Seth Rollins can return and he can interfere in some manner, causing CM Punk to lose, and John Cena wins the world title. He becomes a record-holding 17-time world champion, and he gets to enter his final WrestleMania as world champion. So my world heavyweight champion heading into WrestleMania will be John Cena, and he will face the winner of the Royal Rumble in the main event of WrestleMania, and I'll get to that when I get to my match cards. Now, for my WWE title champion, I would have Randy Orton win the title at Survivor Series. Now, I don't know if him and Cody are going to have any one-on-one matches between now and WrestleMania. It's okay if they do. You can have multiple matches between competitors in a WrestleMania year before they face off at WrestleMania. That doesn't happen too much nowadays, but that used to happen back in the day quite often. In fact, when Randy Orton and Triple H had their match at WrestleMania 25, they ended up wrestling each other like, 20 times before that match in the years building up to it. But anyways, I don't know if Randy and Cody are going to wrestle at like Bad Blood or anything, but here's what I would do. I would have Cody defend the title against Kevin Owens and Randy Orton in a triple threat match at Survivor Series. And Randy Orton can turn heel either before this match or during this match. And Randy Orton should ultimately win that triple threat match with Cody and Kevin and win the title. That would have Cody hold the title from WrestleMania to Survivor Series. That's a pretty good first title reign for Cody Rhodes. And we get the WWE title on a heel Randy Orton. So just to list off, here are my champions heading into WrestleMania. WWE Champion Randy Orton, World Champion John Cena, Women's WWE Nia Jax, Women's World Rhea Ripley, Intercontinental LA Knight, US title Braun Breaker, WWE Tag Team Champions A-Town Down Under, World Tag Team Champions American Made the Creed Brothers, and the Women's Tag Team Champions the Unholy Union. With all of that out of the way, we can finally get to the match card. So starting off WrestleMania Night 1. Now my independent theme for WrestleMania Night 1 is the Bloodline coming to an end. I think the Bloodline has gone on long enough, and stables and teams, tag teams, factions, whatever you want to call them, they tend to go on longer nowadays. It seems that, in the Vince McMahon to Triple H phase period of Vince McMahon passing along, the creative to Triple H over the last few years, it does seem that stables and factions and teams are tending to last longer than they did when I was a fan. When I was a fan, they would last maybe 2 years tops. If a stable had a 2-year run, that was a really long run when I was a fan. Nowadays, it seems like 2 years is almost the minimum that stables and factions go on for, and some of them go on for 3, 4, even 5 years nowadays. But the Bloodline has been going strong for a long time. They've had, new iterations of the Bloodline now, but I think Night 1 of WrestleMania should bookend with the Bloodline. Opening match is the Bloodline, finale match is the Bloodline. That might be giving a bit of a spoiler to what my main event is. I'm sure you can guess it already. But my independent theme of Night 1 of WrestleMania is that the Bloodline is going to come to an end, which leads us to the opening match of WrestleMania 41. The opening match of WrestleMania 41, an 8-man tag team match. The Bloodline versus the Usos, Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens. Solo Sikoa, Jacob Fatu, Tama Tonga, and Tonga Loa versus Jimmy and Jay, the Usos, Sami Zayn, and Kevin Owens. Now, I don't know if Kevin Owens is going to turn heel. There's some rumblings that he might turn heel soon in the feud with Cody and maybe the feud with Randy. If he does, that's fine. You can turn him babyface in time for WrestleMania again. But for me, this is the opening match to WrestleMania 40, an 8-man tag, the Bloodline versus the Usos, Zayn, and Kevin Owens. Now, there's lots of, I'm sure we're going to see lots of variations of the Bloodline versus former Bloodline matches from, now until WrestleMania, including Solo Sikoa versus Roman Reigns, and Roman Reigns teaming with the Usos and teaming with Sami Zayn. We're going to get a lot of these types of matches heading into WrestleMania. Um, Like I said, you can probably already guess what my main event of night one for WrestleMania is. But I think there's some pretty good, stories going into this. You have the new bloodline versus the old bloodline with Jimmy and Jay and Sammy. Kevin Owens has been heavily involved as an opponent of the bloodline through the last few years, including teaming up with Sami Zayn to take on the Usos in night one main event of WrestleMania before. So right here you have a lot of, interesting story directions to go. You have a lot of, built-in story moments with all these guys. But, for me, this is, helping towards the bloodline coming to an end. And, you know, the Usos, Sami Zayn, and Kevin Owens, all those guys probably feel like they deserve an independent match at WrestleMania this year. I don't think they're going to get it. No, they don't get it in my card anyways. You might have a bit of a hard time convincing them to do this match, but they're still going to get a decent payday out of it. And for me, they get to open WrestleMania, and of course, you give them the win. You kind of have to give it to the vets here. You might feel tempted to give it to the new bloodline and, get the young guys a big WrestleMania victory here. But to me, them being in the opening match of WrestleMania is their push forward. You kind of have to give the veterans the win here. So for me, my opening match is the Bloodline versus the Usos, Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens, and I have the Usos, Sami, and Kevin winning this match. I'm really excited for. Now, there's rumors going around that the WWE wants to bring in a Women's United States and Women's Intercontinental Championship. So they want to bring in mid-card titles for the women, which I think if they do that, they're going to have to find other ways to reduce the amount of titles because I think there's already too many titles in the WWE. But for me, if they're going to do it, they should do it at WrestleMania and they should do it in a 9-woman ladder match. Now, I was a big fan of the format of the ladder match at WrestleMania 40, where you had the two tag team titles on the line, where you grab the first one to grab the WWE Tag Team Champions are the WWE Tag Team Champions, but the match isn't over until both titles are won. So that the Miz and R-Truth, when they won the World Tag Team Champions, they were declared the winners of the match and they left World Tag Team Champions. I think you should do that at WrestleMania for a new United States champion and new Intercontinental champion for the women. And I also have those specific title designs on there because neither of those title designs are being used for the men's titles at this point, and they're both nowadays classic US and classic Intercontinental belts that were the belts when I was a fan of WWE. So why not bring those classic designs back for the women and have those be the women's US title and the women's Intercontinental title? I have no idea if the rumored belts have leaked or if their designs have leaked and if it's something completely different. I have no idea. But for me, if you're going to bring those titles in for the women, why not give them the classic title design? It would be prestigious, right? It would look cool. It would be prestigious for them to hold those titles because, those belts have been held by, legendary performers in the WWE before. So why not let them hold those titles? But before we get to the participants of this match, which you can already see, if they do bring these titles in, I think they could reduce the titles by doing two things. Number one, the men's tag team titles. We don't need two men's tag team titles. Just make an undisputed tag team titles after WrestleMania and have the two men tag team champions form into one tag team champions. And same thing with the women's world champion. If you're going to have a women's tag team titles and two mid-card titles for the women, you don't need two women world champions either. And I think having four, world champions in WWE is too many world champions to have. So I would have an undisputed women's champion as well, have the two women world champions fight out to be the undisputed women's world champion. And that way you're bringing in two new titles, but you're also getting rid of two titles. So we're not having too much of a title overload, which I think is becoming a problem in WWE. But for this match, I have a 9-woman ladder match to determine the first ever women's Intercontinental Champion and women's United States Champion using those classic belt designs. And I have Bayley, Bianca Belair, Naomi, Dakota Kai, Io Sky, Zelina Vega, Chelsea Green, Jordan Grace from TNA, and Roxanne Perez from NXT, all competing to be the first ever women's US and Intercontinental Champion. Now, there's a couple things or a few things that we want to accomplish with this match. First, obviously, we want to crown new champions, and we also want to, you know, push that theme of WrestleMania past, present, and future. Here I see future like Zelina Vega, Roxanne Perez, Io Sky to an extent, Chelsea Green to an extent. The future is there. You're celebrating, a future with WWE and TNA partnership by having Jordynne Grace being involved in this match. But you're also celebrating the past, a star like Naomi, who's been around for seemingly forever, because she was around when I was a fan. Bayley, who's had long, long runs at the top now. And then you're also celebrating the present, which is obviously Bianca Belair. So you're celebrating all those themes, but you also want to protect Bianca's undefeated streak. So here's how I would do this. Here's who I would have walk out as champions and how I would format the match. I would have the US title be won first, and I'd have it won by Io Sky. Io Sky for me would be the first ever Women's United States champion. Number one, it would be symbolic for a non-American to be the first ever Women's United States champion. I think that's, pretty symbolic right there. For many different reasons, both in a positive and negative light. They can spin it several different ways, but I think Io Sky is deserving. She walked into WrestleMania 40 as a world champion. She is an incredible in-ring performer. She's truly gifted, and she's still on the younger side for pro wrestling. She still has another 5 to 10 years of, high quality top-notch wrestling ahead of her, and she can be an asset to the company for the next 5 to 10 years. Do they see her as a main event talent status? I'm not sure. I think they're leaning towards no, especially since they had her lose to Bayley last year in a match that I personally thought she should have won. But regardless, I think with the work she's done, the career she's had up to this point and the career that she will continue to have, I think her winning the US title would be a good gesture, and I think she's deserving. So when Io Sky wins the United States title, you have Samantha announce it as, ladies and gentlemen, the first ever Women's United States Champion, Io Sky, or the inaugural United States Champion, Io Sky. You don't say, here is your winner. You don't declare her the winner. You don't play her music. You just have Samantha announce the first ever Women's United States Champion, Io Sky, and you give Io like 10-15 seconds of celebrating with the new belt that she won. But the match continues. And when Bianca wins the Intercontinental Championship, then Bianca's music is played, and Samantha clearly states, here is your winner and the new Women's Intercontinental Champion, Bianca Belair, and you can throw up the graphic of 5-0, which she would be at WrestleMania at this point, 5-0. She is the official winner of the match, while Io Sky won the United States title. The official winner of the match is Bianca Belair. Her undefeated streak continues, and she gets to walk out as the new Women's Intercontinental Champion, while Io Sky is the United States Champion. I think that all around would be the best for this match. You protect Bianca's undefeated streak. She wins the match. She's the first ever IC champion. Io Sky gets to be US champion, which is good for her. And we also get to have, the quote-unquote spectacle. The winner of the spectacle can be either Zelina Vega or Roxanne Perez. You can give the biggest spot of the match to either of them. They'll be able to do it, and thus they'll kind of win the spectacle of the match, which helps push them as a future star in the company, especially Roxanne Perez, who's currently the NXT champion. You can have her even be NXT champion heading into this match, but if you have her kind of win the spectacle, she can be the one that kind of gets over from the match, while Io and Bianca are celebrated as the new champions, which they both rightfully deserve, and Bianca's undefeated streak is protected. So let's move on to the next match. I have the World Tag Team Championship on the line. Again, the Creed brothers are coming in as champions, and I have them against Bronson Reed and Brock Lesnar. Now, this kind of, celebrates again past, present, and future. I think, the Creed brothers is, kind of the future of tag team wrestling in the WWE. Bronson Reed's kind of a future slash present star. Brock Lesnar's obviously a past star. So again, we're getting all of our themes in. Now, getting Brock to do this match might be a little bit tricky. It might be hard to convince him to, do this as, do a tag team match at WrestleMania. I don't believe he's ever done a tag team match at WrestleMania, so that would be something new for him. And, working with these three guys might not necessarily excite him crazily, but I don't really see a better spot for Brock on this card if he does indeed compete at WrestleMania 41. But, here's how I would sell it to Lesnar. I would sell it as Bronson Reed and the Creed brothers, or Bronson Reed and the Creed brothers will both be heels heading into the match. So he would be the lone babyface in the match. That's one way I would sell it to him. And the second way I would sell it to him is this. Look, if you don't want to be on TV with these guys and working with these guys, too much heading into WrestleMania, why don't we just have Bronson Reed have a mystery partner at WrestleMania? That way you don't have to show up until WrestleMania itself. Then Bronson Reed can have a mystery partner. You can come out being that mystery partner. You can get your cheap return mystery partner pop. You can be the lone babyface in the match, and you can ultimately pick up the win and walk out of WrestleMania as a champion. You'll still get a six-figure payday. You'll get to walk out with a belt. And look, if you don't want to be a tag team wrestler for long, we can have you guys drop the belts right away to the Creed brothers again, very quickly, and have you feud with Bronson Reed going forward. Bronson can blame you for the loss, he can turn on you, and you can face off against the next big monster heel, Bronson Reed, in a feud after WrestleMania. Or you can continue working with Bronson Reed. I do have the bloodline coming to an end at this show, so you can have Paul Heyman start working with you and Bronson Reed and eventually have Reed turn on you with Heyman. There's options here. That's the point. There's tons of options going forward, but for the night itself, you sell it to Brock by being, look, you're going to get a six-figure payday, you're going to get to walk out a champion, and, if you don't want to be on TV ahead of it, you can just be a mystery partner. And we'll kind of make it so like everybody knows you're the mystery partner, but you're still a mystery partner. That way you don't have to show up until WrestleMania itself. And then, I think you can sell Brock on this. I really do, especially at this stage of his career and the fact that, it's going to be hard for him to do kind of anything else. He's obviously past the point of UFC and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I don't think it's going to be as hard of a sell to make Brock do this match as some people think it would. But I would have Brock and Bronson go over and leave WrestleMania as the tag team champions. Going into the next match, I have Damian Priest versus Drew McIntyre. Now, we saw them at WrestleMania last year with Damian Priest cashing in on Drew McIntyre, and we've seen them wrestle since then. So there's lots of build-up heading into this, and it can be some nice, WrestleMania to WrestleMania storytelling of last year we saw Priest cash in on McIntyre, and now we're seeing them just collide, one-on-one in a straight-up match. Now, there's some nice, WrestleMania to WrestleMania storytelling right there, not to mention everything that they've been going through in between the WrestleManias that can lead into this. And I think that both of these guys deserve one-on-one matches at WrestleMania, and I think going against each other is a good fit. There's lots of time between now and WrestleMania. You can add to this. There's already built-in story, but you can add to this. And I think both these guys, like I said, the work they've been doing this year, they both deserve independent one-on-one matches at WrestleMania. I don't see either of them being in the title run come WrestleMania, so, facing off against each other is a pretty decent substitute. And, being in the middle of the card here, I don't think it's a bad spot for them. And, they'll have a pretty good match together. I'd ultimately have Drew go over. You can have Damian go over if you want to give him that moment. But for me, it's not just about, these two guys themselves. It's not just about, this match itself. You gotta think of the whole show. And one of my kind of criticisms of WrestleMania 40 is that it felt like the baby faces were winning every single match. It felt like the heels were not winning, and I don't like that. I like to have, you know, I know at WrestleMania you kind of want to lean towards the baby faces winning as much as possible because that's kind of what WrestleMania is about, is, seeing things come to a close. And I get that, but a show also needs balance. And for me, this is an opportunity for a heel to get a win. Drew obviously deserves it, so I'd have Drew go over. Um, I wouldn't be overly offended if Damian Priest won this match, but I'm going to have Drew win this match. So there's my fourth match, Damian Priest versus Drew McIntyre. This, of all the matches at WrestleMania, is my second most hardest sell. I have one match on WrestleMania Night 2 that I think will be a harder sell for WWE to pull off. This one I have at number 2 as it's the second most unlikely to happen. However, I do think The Undertaker could be sold on this. Number 1, Undertaker has come out publicly lately saying he has the itch to do one more. He has said publicly before that he would like to have his last match be in front of an audience and not be a cinematic match. He's also talked a lot about how he wishes he did more to pass on the torch of, that sort of dark, gothic, mystical being character to Bray Wyatt and, the Wyatts in general. And he regrets that he didn't do a good enough job passing that torch to Bray Wyatt while Bray was still with us. Now, this is an opportunity to kind of right a lot of those wrongs. You can have a match in front of a crowd, you can have your one last match, and you can pass on, the torch of that sort of mystical dark character to Bray's brother, Uncle Howdy, who is now the leader of the new Wyatts. So you can kind of scratch all those itches at once and right all those wrongs at once. And what you would do is you would have Undertaker enter this match as the American Badass Undertaker. You could even call him Mark Calloway, the Undertaker, because I feel like, especially with everything that Mark is doing outside of wrestling right now, the kind of, the character the Undertaker is kind of gone at this point. But he can do American Badass, and it can be Mark Calloway, The Undertaker, versus Uncle Howdy. It will still be that symbolic passing of the torch. And yes, I do have Uncle Howdy going over in this match because you don't bring The Undertaker back for Undertaker to win. First of all, that does nothing for anybody. It might do something for Mark personally, but it doesn't do anything for the business. It doesn't do anything to help the company. It doesn't do anything to help a current star. You do not bring him back to win a match. Number 2, I really don't see a match for him outside of Uncle Howdy, one that makes sense anyways. Like, this to me is, if he's going to do it, this is the guy he faces off against. This is what makes the most sense. So yeah, I would have Uncle Howdy go over The Undertaker. It's just, you scratch all those itches, you right all those wrongs. Undertaker gets you can still give Taker a moment in the ring to celebrate his career after the loss, but he does need to come in and do the favors here. If he's going to do it, he needs to do the favors. So I would have Uncle Howdy go over. I think this is going to be a tough match to sell The Undertaker on doing. I don't know if he would do it, but if presented to him in the right way, and Uncle Howdy himself, kind of reached out and requested him to do this, I think you could get it done. And I think this would be a really, really nice upper mid-card match for WrestleMania this year. The Undertaker versus Uncle Howdy, with Uncle Howdy ultimately going over in the end. So that's my fifth match of night 1. My sixth match of night 1 is the WWE Women's Championship, Nia Jax versus Charlotte Flair, Queen Nia versus Queen Charlotte. And I'd have Tiffany Stratton cash in on Nia Jax after Nia beats Charlotte. So again, past, present, future, all represented in one match. Charlotte, she can still go. She still has stuff to give the business. She's still a mega star. But at this stage of her career, she has got to be considered a past star. She's had her day, and it's done. She can still be there, she can still offer things, but her time at the top is done. She is a past star. Nia Jax is a present star. She's the champion. She'll walk into this match as the champion. She will ultimately defeat Charlotte. She is the present. Tiffany Stratton is the future. She's the Money in the Bank holder, so she's literally the future. And she's, of the three, she's the least established of the three, and she has the brightest future of the three. So there you go. Past, present, future, all in one match. Nia goes over Charlotte. Charlotte does the favors for Nia. It'll be a huge, huge win for Nia Jax. And then we finally get that cash in after the fact. Tiffany will cash in on Nia. She'll win the women's WWE championship, and she will leave WrestleMania with the title in her hand. I think this will be kind of perfect. And I think, like I said, we accomplish all those themes. We get Nia a huge victory, but we also crown a new champion in Tiffany, and we look towards the future, which leads us to a very clearly Tiffany versus Nia feud in the aftermath of WrestleMania. I think it's perfect. Let's get this done. Nia Jax versus Charlotte. Nia will go over, and then Tiffany cashes in on Nia Jax. So we have 2 women's matches in a row here and 3 on the card of night 1, which I think is fine. The women's ladder match is going to be epic. Nia and Charlotte is going to be epic. At this stage here, I think we need a bit of a buffer match. And I think this match can serve a few things while also being a buffer match. I think it fits into the themes of past, present, and future. We got 2 present and arguably 2 future teams here. The Unholy Union can walk in as champions, and they can face off against Katana Chance and Kaden Carter with the women's tag team titles on the line. For me, it gets these women on the card, it gets the women's tag team titles represented at WrestleMania, but it works as a good buffer match because after Taker and Howdy and after Nia and Charlotte, the crowd could be experiencing a bit of exhaustion here, and we don't want them too exhausted going into the main event. So I feel like we need a bit of a buffer before we get to the main event of night 1. This works as that while also getting these 4 women on the card and the tag team titles represented. I don't really care who wins this match. You can go either way. I don't really care who enters as heels or who enters as baby faces. That can go either way as well. There's still lots of time until WrestleMania. But for me, this works as a buffer match, and you can kind of go either way here. Doesn't really matter. I don't think anybody will be too offended either way who wins. But there you go, my 7th match. The Unholy Union defending the women's tag team titles against Katana Chance and Kaden Carter. Which leads us to the main event of night 1. Past, present, and future. The bloodline comes to an end. The tribal chief taking on the final boss, Roman Reigns versus The Rock. The Rock representing the past, Roman Reigns representing the present, or the present. So The Rock representing the past, Roman Reigns representing the present, and the future with, all these guys no longer being in the bloodline representing the future. All of them are gonna go their own way. The bloodline comes to an end. The biggest story of the WWE for the last several years comes to an end, which leaves a blank slate for the future. Again, all those themes accomplished in one match. We finally get The Rock versus Roman, which has been teased for a long time now. And, I think this is the way to go. We don't need a title involved. It's simply the tribal chief versus the final boss and the bloodline coming to an end. It's, 2 of the biggest stars, if not the 2 biggest stars in the company, going against one another. I think it's time. And I do think it's better than the alternatives. I don't think Cody versus Rock, we saw Cody versus Rock. We got it last year. Yes, it was a tag team match, but we saw Cody and Rock were feuding all the way through WrestleMania season last year. We don't need to see that again. Cody versus Roman 3, I think, needs to happen at some point, but not at WrestleMania. We've seen 3 matches at WrestleMania before, Triple H and Undertaker, and The Rock and Stone Cold, and Roman versus Brock. All three of them have had 3 matches against one another at WrestleMania, but The Rock versus Austin, they didn't have those 3 matches back to back to back. In fact, none of them were back to back. They were all separated. You had Triple H versus The Undertaker 3 times at WrestleMania. Their second match was back to back. Or their second and third match, I should say, were back to back, but not all 3 of them were, back to back to back. Roman and Brock, none of them were back to back. They were all separated. So in terms of Roman versus Cody 3, I do think that's a WrestleMania match at some point. I just don't think it's this year. It's too soon for their third match. We can have the rubber match, the rudder match, whatever you want to call it, the tiebreaker match. We can have that at some point, just not this year, just not now. To me, this is the way to go. Past, present, and future. The bloodline comes to an end. Roman versus Rock. And you have Roman Reigns win the match. And how you end it is you have Roman go up onto the ramp for his signature WrestleMania pose with the pyro. And then you have all the members of the bloodline, the new bloodline and old bloodline. You can have Solo Sikoa, Jacob Fatu, Tama Tonga, Tonga Loa, Jimmy and Jay Uso, Sami Zayn, The Rock, Paul Heyman, and Roman Reigns all stand on the ramp together. And they can all do the tribal chief salute, but they can do it not to Roman Reigns, but they can do it to the audience. They can acknowledge the audience, symbolically saying that the bloodline is over. And what you do is you have each member leave the stage independently, also symbolizing that the bloodline is over. Maybe you have Tonga Loa leave first. You maybe have Tama Tonga leave second. Jacob Fatu might leave third. Solo Sikoa might leave fourth. Then you might have Jimmy and Jay Uso leave. Then you have Sami Zayn leave, which maybe leaves Paul Heyman, Roman Reigns, and The Rock. Paul Heyman then leaves, leaving Roman and The Rock. And then The Rock finally leaves, leaving Roman alone, where it all started with. And Roman Reigns gets probably his last ever closing main event WrestleMania moment. He now has the stage all to himself. The bloodline is over, and Roman salutes the crowd one more time. And that's how we end night 1 of WrestleMania 41. Okay, so that brings us to WrestleMania Night 2 of WrestleMania Vegas, WrestleMania Past, Present, and Future, WrestleMania 41, whatever we're calling it. And again, I have 8 matches at WrestleMania Night 2. I think that you look at the card I had for WrestleMania Night 1, it was a pretty stacked card, but I do think that Night 2 actually might be slightly better. It's definitely got some. I think definitely the second half of night 2 will surpass the second half of night 1. I think maybe the mid card and undercard of night 1 is better than night 2, but let's just jump into it. We're gonna jump in and we're gonna jump in hot. We're gonna kick off WrestleMania Night 2 with Asuka versus Kairi Sane. Now, the story of this match will be simple. Obviously, Kyrie and Damage Control will turn on Asuka, and Asuka will enter this match as the babyface. Asuka is winless at WrestleMania. This is something that's bothered a lot of fans and a lot of wrestling purists for a long time. Asuka deserves her WrestleMania moment, and she's been involved in some big matches at WrestleMania. She's had some great matches at WrestleMania, but she's never won. This is the year where she has to win because the story of this match will be simple. If Kairi Sane beats Asuka, Asuka must retire from competing in the WWE for the rest of her career. There you go. There's her story. Asuka either finally gets her WrestleMania victory, or she is forbidden from competing in the WWE for the rest of her professional wrestling career. There you go. You got your story. Damage Control turns on Asuka, and Asuka has this, she must win or she's done. She must finally get her moment or she's done. Simple, effective, it works. These two know each other so well. They've been a tag team for so many years now. They've been They know each other well. They've competed with each other for a long time. They're going to have a killer match, and it would be a great match, both story wise and just, in ring wise, to kick off night two. And obviously, Asuka finally gets her moment. She finally gets the win. She gets to win as a babyface. She gets to keep her spot in the WWE. She gets to kick off a WrestleMania night with a victory. I think it'll be perfect. Let's get this. Let's make this happen. What a perfect opening card, mid card match for these two. Asuka finally getting her moment the way that R-Truth got his moment at WrestleMania 40. Asuka finally gets the most well deserved and needed win in WrestleMania history. Let's get it done. So just like we had a 9-woman ladder match for the Intercontinental and US title on night one, we can do the same thing for night two for the men. Now, some people might say, well, having two of the same matches on the two nights is a little bit lazy. Well, I would say that the men and women have been mirroring each other in WWE for a long time now. You see the Queen and King of the Ring, you see men and women's Money in the Bank, and you see men and women's Royal Rumbles matches all in same night, single event, things, right? Like you have the Queen of the Ring and the King of the Ring. You have the women's Money in the Bank, the men's Money in the Bank, the women's Royal Rumble, the men's Royal Rumble. So for me, they've been mirroring each other for a long time now. Why not do the same thing here? The women got their ladder match for the US and IC title on night one. Let the men have theirs on night two. Now, there's obviously some of these competitors, I'm pretty committed to them being in it. Braun Breaker entering as Intercontinental Champion and LA Knight entering as United States Champion. I think both those guys deserve to hold their titles until this WrestleMania, and to walk in as champions into WrestleMania will be huge for both of them. I think you got to keep AJ Styles in this match. If he's still on the roster come WrestleMania, I think you got to put him in there just based on all the work he's done in his career. He deserves to be part of WrestleMania. Sheamus will be able to continue that story of will he finally win the Intercontinental title. So for me, he has to be there. Finn Balor has to be there for me. Dirty Dom, I'm going to actually have him win one of the titles. And some people will say, oh, well, Dominic should have an independent match at WrestleMania. I don't think so. I think you can get him into this match as long as he wins one of the titles, which will be his breakout moment. I have the TNA World Champion, Nick Nemeth. Now, I don't know if Nick Nemeth will be TNA Champion come WrestleMania, but if he is, you probably have him in there. I also have the TNA X Division Champion, Zachary Wentz, in this match. I don't know if he'll be X Division Champion, but I'm pretty sure Zachary Wentz has actually done some, WWE matches and NXT matches already. Speaking of NXT, I have the current NXT champion, Ethan Page, in there as well. So that's more about having the NXT champion, the TNA X Division champion, and TNA World champion in there. I don't know if any of those three guys or if all three of those guys will still be those champions come WrestleMania, but if they are, they can enter this match for the chance to win the IC and US title. Now, for me, 7 to 9 in a ladder match is the perfect number. I think once you hit 10, once you hit double digits, it's a little too much. There are some people that didn't make my WrestleMania card that you might be tempted to throw in there. Guys like Carlito or Chad Gable or some of the other members of the Wyatts outside of Uncle Howdy. You might be tempted to throw some of those guys into this match, and if you do, maybe they replace an AJ Styles. Maybe they replace, one of the TNA guys. Maybe they replace, the NXT champion. But I think these 9 guys, I think they're pretty good. They're a pretty good 9 to have in the match. And here's how I would book the winnings. I would have the Intercontinental title won first, and I'd have it won by Dominic Mysterio. And similar to how we had Io and Bianca, you don't have Samantha declare Dominic the winner of the match, and you don't have his music played or anything like that. You just have Samantha say, ladies and gentlemen, your new Intercontinental Champion, Dominic Mysterio. And he has a moment where he celebrates with the title, but the match continues. So Braun Breaker is no longer the Intercontinental Champion. However, I feel he needs to be the one to win this match. So I would book the ending with Dominic looking like he's about to win the US title as well, and that Dominic Mysterio is very close to walking out as a double winner in this match and walking out with both belts. But that's when you have Braun Breaker, who's already cheesed off about losing the Intercontinental title this match. He interferes in some manner to prevent Dominic from winning the US title and winning the match. And Braun Breaker climbs up the ladder. His Intercontinental title reign is over, but he pulls down the United States title and is the new US champion. And then you have his music played and Samantha saying, "Ladies and gentlemen, your winner and new United States champion, Braun Breaker," which would allow him to be undefeated at WrestleMania. He can go 1-0 and he can be the United States champion. His Intercontinental title reign is over. Dominic is the new Intercontinental champion, which will be huge for Dom. You know, getting that title would be a huge moment for Dom. But the winner of the match will be Braun Breaker. Braun Breaker does get to leave as champion. He's now a two-time champion in the WWE with the United States title. LA Knight, unfortunately, doesn't get a win here for either belt. But I think this accomplishes a lot. You get Dominic the Intercontinental title, which is important. He needs that going forward. And you get Braun Breaker the win, and he gets to leave as champion. I think this is almost perfect booking, and that's how I would book this match. Then we go into the WWE Tag Team titles, which I would have Austin Theory and Grayson Waller walk in as WWE Tag Team Champions and defense against Dragon Lee and Rey Mysterio. Now, some people might say that Rey Mysterio should go into a retirement match at WrestleMania 42, or he should finally lose to Dominic at WrestleMania 42. I think Dominic's already had his victory over Rey at this point. We don't need to revisit that every single WrestleMania. For me, Dragon Lee and Rey Mysterio were supposed to tag team last year at WrestleMania 40. It didn't end up happening. I think it should end up happening at this WrestleMania, and it should be in a tag team title match. And you have options here. You can either go with the heels getting the win, Austin Theory and Grayson Waller getting the win, or you can get Rey Mysterio getting the win to help Dragon Lee get over and get a title on Dragon Lee. And then maybe you have Austin Theory or Grayson Waller turn on the other one and start a feud with them. You have options. That's the point with this match. You have options. You can do a bunch of things, but for me, it gets Grayson Waller and Austin Theory on the card as champions. We get to finally see Rey and Dragon Lee team up at WrestleMania like we were originally supposed to. And you have options here of which way you want to go with the result. For me personally, I probably go Rey and Dragon Lee winning the titles, and then you have Austin Theory turn on Grayson Waller to start a feud in the aftermath of WrestleMania. I think that's probably the smartest way to go here. It would get Austin Theory back as a singles competitor, and he can feud with Grayson Waller. That makes sense, and it gets Dragon Lee a title. And we kind of get all of our themes represented in one match again. You know, Austin Theory and Grayson Waller being present, Rey Mysterio being the past, and, you know, Dragon Lee being the future. So I think that makes sense. I don't know how old Dragon Lee is, but he hasn't been in WWE for that long, so he could still be looked at as a future star. Even I'm not sure what his age is. He might be on the older side. I don't know. But in terms of WWE status, he can still be considered a future star. So past, present, and future. There you go. I'd have Rey and Dragon Lee win. Austin Theory starts a feud with Grayson Waller at the conclusion of the match. I talked about how The Undertaker versus Uncle Howdy would be the second most unlikely match because I don't know if you could convince the Taker to do it. I mentioned that there was one match that I think would be the hardest sell and the most unlikely match to happen, and that's this. However, this is my logic. Bad Bunny, Logan Paul. Both of them have wrestled in the WWE. Logan Paul's had numerous matches in the WWE. I think Bad Bunny's had a couple at this stage. I think he's wrestled at WrestleMania before, and he's definitely wrestled at Backlash before. I know that. And both of these guys have outside appeal to larger, broader audiences that they can, you know, this can be a match that can help sell WrestleMania to non-wrestling fans. The fact that we get to see Bad Bunny, who, you know, people outside of wrestling are familiar with, versus Logan Paul, who people outside of wrestling are familiar with, but also two guys that we know can wrestle in the ring and get a match done. Um, I think this is a hard sell because I don't think Bad Bunny's going to wrestle in WWE again. I saw an article where he said that he thought he was going to die after his match at Backlash. I didn't go into details and read it fully about like why he felt that way, but just seeing the headline and the fact that he hasn't wrestled in WWE since then, it makes it seem like this is probably a hard sell to make happen. But um, if they can get this to happen, it's a wide appeal, cross, into mainstream appeal for non-wrestling fans. And it's two guys that, like I said, they know they can have a serviceable match. You probably give the victory to Logan Paul here, which is another way that would probably make it a hard sell for Bad Bunny. Does he really want to come in and do a job for Logan Paul? But if you can get them to do this and come up with a creative way to get Bad Bunny to agree to lose to Logan, maybe it's, from interference from KSI or from I Show Speed or whatever, and then maybe Bad Bunny gets revenge at Backlash by getting a victory over Logan Paul at Backlash. Maybe you sell it to him that way, but for me, this is a big money mid card match that has, wider appeal. If the WWE can get this done, I think they should get this done. It'll get Logan a victory at WrestleMania. It'll keep him in a big time match, and it'll keep him out of the title hunts, which I don't think Logan Paul is quite ready to be world champion yet. And I don't think him being in the mid card, like the ladder match, like he could do that ladder match that I had for the US and Intercontinental title, but like, is he best suited being thrown into that ladder match, which he's not going to win, or is he better suited in a big, wide appealing match like this, where he can help sell WrestleMania, help and get himself a big WrestleMania victory over another big celebrity, and kind of go forward from there. It's probably a hard sell for Bad Bunny, maybe a hard sell for Logan as well, but I think it's the way to go. And if the WWE can get this match done, it's pretty good business for them. The WWE Championship match. Randy Orton versus Cody Rhodes. So if you skip through the explanation of my champions, I basically said that Cody would lose at Survivor Series in a triple threat match to Randy Orton and Kevin Owens. Randy Orton would either become heel during that match or turn heel before that match, but walk out as a heel WWE champion, which would ultimately lead to Cody versus Randy at WrestleMania for the WWE title. Cody can probably be feuding on and off with WrestleMania, or with Randy Orton from Survivor Series to WrestleMania. Cody can win the Elimination Chamber and challenge Randy for the title at WrestleMania. And there's so much story built in here. Obviously, Randy Orton and Cody Rhodes, they're both generational talents. They're both, Cody's a second generation star, Randy's a third generation star. Both of them are veterans in the business. They were part of the Legacy faction together. Randy, feuded with Dusty Rhodes when Cody was just entering WWE, then took him under his wing as a part of the Legacy. They're really close friends inside and outside of wrestling. There's just so much story to be told here, and I hope the WWE does save this for WrestleMania, and I hope they don't rush into this before WrestleMania, because for me, this is a WrestleMania match, and Randy Orton defending the WWE title against Cody Rhodes at WrestleMania, it's almost just, it writes itself, It's so perfect it writes itself. We don't need to get all into it. We all know what this storyline in this feud would be. I would have Cody go over in this match, and some people might groan at Cody winning the title 2 years in a row, but it's not the main event, so it's not like he's walking out as the closing, champion of WrestleMania 2 years in a row. He does win the title, but, I have it positioned as the fifth match of night two. But like I said, this story, it writes itself. It's a match that needs to happen. Cody winning the title over Randy will be, a nice passing of the torch moment. And Cody can begin his second reign as WWE Undisputed Champion at WrestleMania by defeating his former mentor, Randy Orton. It's so perfect and it needs to happen. Let's get it done. My sixth match of the night is husband and wife versus husband and wife. I don't know if we've ever had that in WrestleMania before. I know we had Miz and Maurice versus Cena and Nikki, but Cena and Nikki weren't married yet. So I don't know if this has ever happened. Um, but Triple H and Steph have teamed up, but they face off against Kurt Angle and Ronda, who are not married. So yeah, I think this would be the first ever husband and wife versus husband and wife match in WrestleMania history. But my explanation, just going, again, if you skipped my explanation of all the champions, and at the beginning of this video, I said CM Punk would win the world title at Survivor Series against Gunther, but then he would lose it to Cena at Royal Rumble due to an interference by Seth. Now, you can have Seth Rollins versus CM Punk at WrestleMania. That's fine. You can even have Seth with Becky in his corner versus Punk with AJ in his corner at WrestleMania. That's fine as well. But to me, having Becky and AJ involved in the actual match, it just adds a little bit of juice to it, and it makes it a little bit more intriguing and engaging than simply just Seth versus Punk. Seth versus Punk, they're going to have, to me, that's a match you can do 10 times in a year and it's going to be phenomenal each time. It should have happened at WrestleMania last year. It was going to happen at WrestleMania last year if Punk didn't get injured. But to me, the way you make this match a little bit more interesting, because we've seen them in the share the same ring several times now. Mike, going toe to toe on the mic, Seth being a special referee in Punk's return match at SummerSlam. I just don't think there's enough juice there for CM Punk versus Seth Rollins on its own at this point. But if Seth does cost CM Punk the world title against Cena at the Royal Rumble, which I have in my booking, you can lead into this match with a lot of, bad blood between them, no pun intended. But getting the wives involved, to me, it just adds, like I said, extra juice to the match. I think fans want to see Becky come back to WWE. I'm not sure what her current status is. I know there's a lot of rumors out there about how maybe she might step out of the company and go somewhere else, or maybe she just wants to stay home with the kids. And AJ, there's been rumors that she might come back. We've seen videos of her training with Punk in the ring since Punk's made his return. We don't know what the status of these two women are, but all I know is that I think fans want to see Becky come back for WrestleMania. I think fans would love to see AJ come back for WrestleMania. The women are legends in themselves, and to me, this is past and present, right? Seth and CM Punk, they're both present stars, but they both, they've had their time at the top already, so they're both a present and past star. Punk is kind of all three. He's a past star and his time at the top's already happened. He's a present star in that he's always been a megastar, and he's he hasn't had a WrestleMania match in decades. So he's still a present star, but he's also a future star in the sense that CM Punk has his own story of not main eventing WrestleMania, and I don't think that main event is this year. I do think he gets it, but I don't think it's this year. So he's kind of all those things wrapped up, all those themes wrapped up into one person. And AJ and Becky are both, past stars themselves. And Becky's kind of a present star. If AJ Lee returns, she can be kind of like her husband in the sense that she's a past, present, and future star as well. But regardless, I'm starting to ramble here. I just think this would be a really unique, really cool, and really excellent match. I think the four of them would do big business. The four of them on the mics leading up to WrestleMania, and whatever storylines they craft for the characters would be excellent. And then the match itself would be excellent. And I just think, like I said, having the wives be part of the match, to me, just adds a little bit of juice to make it a little bit more juicy for WrestleMania. Seth and Becky versus Punk and AJ. Of course, I have Punk and AJ going over, Seth and Becky being the troopers that they are. I don't think they'll have any problem putting over these two. They're going to get a pretty sick payday. I feel like all four of them would get a massive payday for this match, but for me, this is a huge match, and it's my sixth match of WrestleMania Night 2. Brings us to the Women's World Title. Rhea Ripley defending against the winner of the Royal Rumble, Jade Cargill. Now, we talked at the beginning of this video from WrestleMania 20 to 21, WrestleMania 30 to 31, WrestleMania 40 to now, and how if this WrestleMania is to follow themes of the past, the next quote unquote guy, the next big star would be revealed at this WrestleMania. And while I don't have that next person in the main event of either night, I do believe, and I know some fans do not like hearing this, and I know that she is kind of a mixed bag for hardcore fans, but I do think the next face of WWE is Jade Cargill. And it starts with the absolute most important thing that a pro wrestler needs to have to be a star: the look. Hulk Hogan had the look. Stone Cold Steve Austin, he became the guy for many, many reasons, but he had the look. John Cena had the look. Yeah, they needed to change his gimmick around and transform him from, Thugonomics Cena to, the Soldier Cena, Super Cena, whatever you want to call him, Never Give Up, C Nation Leader Cena. He had the look. They had to give him a gimmick change and a bit of a look change, but he had the look. Jade Cargill, she has the look. That's the most important thing in being the poster child of WWE. You need to have the look. And it's called poster child because they're on all the posters. Hulk Hogan was on all the posters. Stone Cold was on all the posters. John Cena was on all the posters. Roman Reigns on all the posters. Roman was chosen as the guy because he had the look. And he had the look more than anybody else on the roster. Was Roman Reigns the best wrestler in the ring when he was given, the reins, pun not intended? No, he wasn't. He got a lot better. That's the thing. Roman Reigns at WrestleMania 31 versus Roman Reigns at WrestleMania 40. Who's a better wrestler? Roman at WrestleMania 40, obviously. Every single day of the week, Roman at WrestleMania 40 is a better wrestler than Roman at WrestleMania 31. And he got better in every other aspect as well, but he always had the look. Cena at WrestleMania 21 versus Cena at WrestleMania 29. Who's a better wrestler? Cena at WrestleMania 29 every day of the week is a better wrestler than John Cena at WrestleMania 21. Cena got better in the ring, and he got better in every other aspect after WrestleMania 21 as well. But he always had the look. Jade Cargill has the look. She is a mixed bag with fans because she's already stated that she doesn't see, the WWE as her, as her biggest goal in life. She sees acting as the biggest goal of her life, but that's fine. We've seen tons of WWE stars transition into acting after their career is over. She is not the best in-ring wrestler at this stage. So those two things combined makes her a mixed bag for a lot of fans. But she has the look. And she has the look more than anybody in the WWE has. This is their star. From WrestleMania 42 through WrestleMania 50, this is the woman that should main event WrestleMania the most, be in the most PLE main events out of everybody, in the company, and be the poster child of WWE going forward. She wins the Royal Rumble in January of 2025. She challenges Rhea Ripley, who's the best women's wrestler in the company, in my opinion, right now. She gets the win. Jade becomes the new women's world champion. She will get better, guys. She will get better in the ring. Look at Cena at 21 compared to 29. Look at Roman at WrestleMania 31 compared to WrestleMania 40. Jade will get better. They already have their top people working with her. She will get better. And some people will say this is too soon. It's not too soon. She needs to be given the title now so she can start getting better and she can start her reign as the top star now. John Cena started at WrestleMania 21 after WrestleMania 20 saw the celebration of Eddie Guerrero and his friend. Roman Reigns became the guy after WrestleMania 31, after the celebration of Bryan Danielson at WrestleMania 30. Jade Cargill will not main event WrestleMania 41, but she needs to start as the guy now after the celebration of Cody Rhodes at WrestleMania 40. At WrestleMania 41, we need to see the reins passed on to who the next megastar is, and that next megastar is Jade Cargill. She will win the Royal Rumble. She will beat Rhea Ripley. She will become 2-0 at WrestleMania, and she will leave WrestleMania Vegas the Women's World Champion. Which leads us to our main event of WrestleMania 41, WrestleMania Past, Present, and Future, WrestleMania Vegas. John Cena has already announced this will be his last WrestleMania. It is not his last match, however. It is not his last night in WWE. Some people will say John Cena should wrestle Randy Orton at WrestleMania this year. They've had years and years and years of history together. John Cena's last WrestleMania should be against Randy Orton. They never had a one-on-one at WrestleMania. They should get their one-on-one at WrestleMania now. Who does that do any good for? It's not John Cena's last night. He's going to wrestle again. So who does that do good for? Does it do good for John Cena? Does it do good for Randy Orton? Who does it do good for? Does it do good for the future of the business? Wrestling is always about pushing things forward, and John Cena knows that. John Cena was the guy for many, many years. He knows that his job in this last year is to push the business forward. A match with Randy Orton, should it happen in John Cena's last year? Absolutely. It absolutely should happen. But it being at WrestleMania, who does that do any good for? It's not John Cena's last night. He's going to wrestle again. John Cena versus Randy Orton, to me, just takes up a WrestleMania slot. It doesn't do anything good. Rather, while Randy versus Cody does the business good now and for the future. Cena versus Gunther does good for the business now and for the future. That's what they need to do with John Cena. He should win the world title at the Royal Rumble from CM Punk, who beat Gunther at Survivor Series. John Cena becomes a record-holding 17-time world champion, which the WWE will officially recognize as the most decorated and most world title wins in professional wrestling history. John Cena will walk into WrestleMania as a 17-time champion, a record. He will walk in as champion one last time at WrestleMania, and he will main event WrestleMania one last time against the winner of the Royal Rumble, Gunther. And Gunther will beat John Cena in John Cena's last WrestleMania match. Gunther will win the World Heavyweight title, starting his second reign as World Champion. John Cena, in his final WrestleMania, will do the honors and give the world title to the current best pro wrestler alive today, Gunther. And Gunther will have his arm raised as he holds that belt in the air. Gunther will then give John Cena the ring. John Cena will get to have his moment with the fans. He'll get to leave and give, whoever he wants at the side in the front row a hug. And then he'll walk up to the stage where Gunther will be with the world title, and it will mirror the end of WrestleMania 29, where The Rock walked up the stage and gave Cena the salute and then held Cena's arm up in victory, passing the torch from Rock to Cena. Cena will do the same for Gunther. Gunther will be at the top of the stage waiting for him. Cena will walk up, give Gunther the salute, raise Gunther's arm in the air, and Gunther will then have the stage all to himself, the new World Heavyweight Champion, and that's how WrestleMania ends. Now, that accomplishes quite a lot for this WrestleMania. You get past, present, and future represented. You have, past stars like Brock Lesnar, The Undertaker, The Rock, John Cena, Randy Orton, Charlotte Flair, all have prominent roles and all do their part to help future and present stars. You have present stars like Drew McIntyre, Uncle Howdy, CM Punk, Seth Rollins, Roman Reigns, the Bloodline, Gunther, the World Heavyweight Champion, Cody Rhodes, the WWE Champion, all these present stars having, being featured in prominent roles at WrestleMania, past and present both being super prominent, but also setting up the future. Braun Breaker, um, Io Sky, Roxanne Perez, Jade Cargill, um, Dominic Mysterio, Logan Paul, all these future stars that have prominent roles at WrestleMania. So I'm just kind of looking at my list of matches here because I want to see who I want to shout out. But, you know, going back to present stars, even Uncle Howdy, who I think I forgot to mention, Bianca Belair, who I think I forgot to mention, future, Rhea Ripley could be in both in future and in present stars. But the point is, we have all these present, past, and future all represented prominently in WrestleMania, all having their moments. And I think the future is always the most important, right? Jade Cargill, who I think is the next face of the WWE. Dominic Mysterio and Braun Breaker, who I think are both future world champions, both walk out with the US and Intercontinental title respectively. Logan Paul, who I think is a future WWE champion, gets a big victory in the mid-card. Uncle Howdy could be considered a future or present star. He gets a big win over The Undertaker. Um, you know, Asuka. We forgot to mention Asuka, a past star who has a decorated pro wrestling career, finally getting her moment. Past, present, and future, all represented at this WrestleMania. And I think we accomplished our themes properly. We've got past, present, and future all represented beautifully. We ended the bloodline, and now we look to the future. And I didn't create a slide for this, but I will say this. I didn't create a slide for this, but I want to just quickly say what I think WrestleMania 42 should look like. And I have 4 matches in particular that I want to highlight. My big kind of mid-card selling match for night 1 of WrestleMania will be Cody versus Roman part 3. I think next year at WrestleMania 42, both Cody and Roman most likely will be out of the title picture at this point. They'll both still be huge main event players, but I think at that stage, having them both out of the title picture is probably what's best for the company. But also for me, I gotta imagine Roman Reigns come WrestleMania 42 will be very close to wanting to call it a career and wanting to transition over into acting. I'm not saying that WrestleMania 42 will be Roman Reigns' last match in WWE. I don't think it'll be his last match in WWE or WrestleMania, but I do think at that stage he's probably going to be done as a year-to-year active performer. He'll want to transition to acting. He'll want to start making, Hollywood money and, not putting his body on the line. We all know Roman's, health history. So he probably at that stage will be wanting to have one big match and then start transitioning into, other parts of life. And as for Cody, I think at that stage, I know Cody Rhodes wants to be an actor as well and has already started acting. And I think come WrestleMania 42, he probably will be ready to, he might not go directly into part-time, but I think he'll be at the stage where he's ready to start thinking about becoming a part-time wrestler and start thinking about getting into Hollywood. Not saying it would be that night specifically, but it would be getting closer to that time most likely. So I think Cody versus Roman 3 in the mid-card of WrestleMania 42 would be a really big selling match, but keeping them both out of the main event. And you can really go either way. You can have Roman win and, kind of be like a cap off to his career, or you could have Cody win, which is what I would do personally, because Roman has had enough WrestleMania moments in his career, to be completely honest. Um, it could be kind of like Roman, passing the torch to Cody. But the point of the third match for them would be a no interference, no one else, mano a mano, and you can have Cody turn heel. Like you can have roles reverse. You have options here, but I think the whole point of the match will be mano a mano, best man wins, no interference, you and me. Let's see who the best really is. And you probably have Cody go over, whether it's as a baby face or as a heel. I think, Cody as a heel come WrestleMania 42 would be acceptable. But it doesn't matter. You have options, but for me, that's one big match I'd have at WrestleMania 42, and I'd have Cody go over. Roman versus Cody Part 3 at WrestleMania 42. And my main event of night one will be the Women's World Champion. At this stage, I'd have her be the Undisputed Champion. I talked about, having the two Women's World Champions become one Undisputed Champion, same with the Men's Tag Team Champions. So going into WrestleMania 42, I'd have Jade Cargill be the Women's Undisputed Champion, having never lost from WrestleMania 41, having her go in 2-0 at WrestleMania to defend her undisputed title in the main event of night one against Bianca Belair. I do think Jade versus Bianca come 42 will be the right time. 2-0 Jade, the undisputed champion, versus 5-0 Bianca. You can even have Bianca be Intercontinental Champion and mirror, Hogan versus Ultimate Warrior if you want to. But for me, I have Jade go over Bianca. Jade will retain her undisputed title. She'll win the main event of night one, and she'll go to 3-0, and she will break Bianca's streak, leaving Bianca at 5-1. And there will be no doubt in anybody's mind at this stage that Jade Cargill is the face of the WWE. Going into night two, my two big selling matches. My first match would be for the World Heavyweight title, and that's Gunther defending his world title that he also holds on to from WrestleMania 41 all the way to WrestleMania 42, and it'll be against Braun Breaker. I think Braun Breaker come this time will be ready to be a world champion, and I would have Braun Breaker go over Gunther. Braun Breaker maybe is your Royal Rumble winner. He maybe is a Money in the Bank holder that he simply cashes in with it via announcement. Like, he wins the Money in the Bank and announces he's challenging for the title at WrestleMania. However you wanted to do it, but I would have Braun Breaker versus Gunther. I think that's a big time match. I think that is definitely a future WrestleMania match. Gunther putting the world title on the line against Braun Breaker. Breaker will be ready to be world champion at that stage. So at WrestleMania 42, on night two, I'd have Braun Breaker go over Gunther to win the world heavyweight title. And my main event of WrestleMania night two will be CM Punk defending the WWE Undisputed Championship, which he will have won at some point, maybe at SummerSlam or somewhere else, but he will have won it at some point against Cody Rhodes, which I think CM Punk versus Cody Rhodes is a money feud for WWE sometime in the aftermath of WrestleMania 41. But CM Punk walking in to WrestleMania 42 as undisputed WWE champion, he finally gets his main event. It's the thing he's always wanted. He will get to walk in as a WWE champion into the main event, and not just a main event, but the main event, the real main event of WrestleMania, which is the night two main event, and he will defend against Logan Paul. I think CM Punk versus Logan Paul is kind of something that writes itself for a WrestleMania main event. Logan being the outsider who always got what Punk sees as an easier ride, despite Punk being the true pro wrestler, and the company was always against him, and he had to work to get to where he is, where Logan's been handed on a silver platter, where Logan can be like, no, I'm just always been better than you were, and this company realizes me, a former YouTuber, as a star when they never saw you, some indie, blah, blah, blah. It writes itself, right? And it would be fire seeing the two of them go, however they wanted to craft the storyline, it would be pretty fire. Seeing them go head to head on the mic would be amazing. And, it could almost mirror the Undertaker Punk match, because when Undertaker and CM Punk wrestled at WrestleMania 29, Undertaker was not able to do certain moves anymore. Like, he wasn't comfortable performing old school. So how did they have old school be in the match at that WrestleMania? They had CM Punk do it. You know, there's going to be certain moves that come WrestleMania 42 that, like, Punk probably can't even do them now, let alone at WrestleMania 42 when his knees will be like beat up even more than they already are. Like the jumping to the top rope clothesline. I haven't seen Punk do that in a long time, but um, you know, Logan could do that at WrestleMania 42 to Punk. The Pepsi plunge, if Punk can't, you know, deliver the Pepsi plunge, Logan Paul can probably be the one to deliver it and Punk receive it. That seems more realistic. And just, you know, some of those like spots that CM Punk will no longer be able to perform himself, he could be on the receiving end of Logan Paul doing them. Um, and then in the end of the match, of course, you have Logan Paul win the title. CM Punk's story is not Cody Rhodes in that he needs to win the main event. Punk's has always just been about being there. He himself has said many times that he would have gladly taken a loss just to be in the main event of WrestleMania, but you also got to pass the torch to the future, right? And I think CM Punk passing the torch to Logan Paul in the main event of WrestleMania 42 would be a nice moment for both wrestlers and the company, and it would accomplish a lot of things. So just to quickly recap my four big matches for WrestleMania 42 in the aftermath of my WrestleMania 41 and just in like what's going on in general. CM Punk main eventing night 2 with the WWE title on the line against Logan Paul. Gunther defending the World Heavyweight title on night 2 against Braun Breaker. Jade Cargill defending the Undisputed Women's World Championship in the main event of night 1 against Bianca Belair. Undefeated versus undefeated. Jade will go over. And also Cody Rhodes versus Roman Reigns Part 3, Mano y Mano, no interference in the mid card of WrestleMania Night 1, WrestleMania 42. So there you go. There's my WrestleMania 41 and a preview of my WrestleMania 42. Hope you enjoyed. Let me know what you think of my match card. Let me know what you think of my winners and losers. Just to quickly recap, I'll just quickly go over my list of winners. So for night 1, match 1, I have the Usos and Kevin and Sami going over the Bloodline. In the women's U.S. and Intercontinental title ladder match, I have Io Sky winning the U.S. title, Bianca Belair winning the Intercontinental title. I have Bronson Reed and Brock Lesnar going over the Creed brothers for the tag team titles. I have Drew McIntyre going over Damian Priest. I have Uncle Howdy going over The Undertaker. I have Nia Jax defeating Charlotte with the women's WWE title on the line. Tiffany catches in afterwards and beats Nia for the title. I have the Unholy Union versus Katana Chance and Caden Carter. I didn't give a winner. It doesn't really matter for me. And then I have Rock versus Roman. Roman going over. Night 2, Asuka versus Kairi Sane. Asuka goes over. In the men's ladder match, I have Dominic Mysterio winning the Intercontinental title and Braun Breaker winning the U.S. title. I have Rey Mysterio and Dragon Lee going over A-Town Down Under for the WWE Tag Team titles. I have Logan Paul going over Bad Bunny. I have Cody Rhodes going over Randy Orton for the WWE title. I have CM Punk and AJ Lee going over Seth Rollins and Becky Lynch. I have Jade Cargill going over Rhea Ripley for the women's world title. And I have Gunther going over John Cena for the world heavyweight title. So let me know your winners and losers from my match card, and let me know what your match card is, and let me know what your thoughts on my match card and my future predictions for what WrestleMania 42 could be built around as well. Thank you for watching. This is Jayvardy. I'm out.